Hey, Derek, guess what?
Hit me with it.
We just got a promotion with Audible.
Audible, fantastic. I love Audible.
Do you know what the cool thing about this deal is?
What's that?
If our listeners go to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod, they get a free trial with Audible. And do you know what they get with that?
What do they get with that? Tell me.
They get one free audiobook of their choice, and they get 2 free Audible originals, which is special content that Audible makes available free for all its subscribers.
Are you kidding me? That deal is so good, I may go myself and sign them.
Do you think they let you keep the books after you're done?
No, you're not going to tell me they let you keep the books after you're done.
Yes. In fact, you can go sign up for a trial, and you can cancel before the trial ends, and you get to keep the books you've already downloaded.
Well, I don't see how you can beat that with a stick.
Exactly, yeah. And you can, lots of great books, especially for fans of this show. You can listen to Super Gods by Grant Morrison, which is all about like how the superhero comics have changed and evolved over time. Or you can check out Marvel Comics, The Untold Story.
Which is a terrific book. I have that both in hardcover, and I listen to that on Audible myself in my car while traveling back and forth.
And there's also another similar book that's called Slugfest, which is about like the wars between Marvel and DC Comics.
Oh, okay.
So that's another one you got to check out too. So yeah, head on over to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod and start your free trial right now. You get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible originals, and you can keep them even if you cancel before it's over.
I swear.
Good move. Ass. Kick. Let's keep it that way.
You know what this is? It's all the cartridge crap that comes out of your gay little taser when you fire it. You do know the police could have traced this right back to you if they found it. But lucky for you, I picked it up.
Thank you.
Let's call it insurance. Makes it easier for us to take your word. See, we like you, but we don't trust you.
Don't take it personal, though. We don't trust anybody.
I rerouted your IP address. Finding you was way too easy.
Oh, shit. Shit, I hadn't thought... My God, I owe you. You know what? I'm thinking of just shutting my site down anyway. Quitting. I mean, it's fucking insane. I'm in way over my head.
It's a shame. You have potential.
Your call, but you know we're around if you need us.
How do I get a hold of you?
You just contact the mayor's office. He has a special signal that shines in the sky. It's in the shape of a giant cock.
You need us, put on your website that you're on vacation. We'll find you. Hit girl, back to headquarters.
Sweet dreams.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I am half of your host, Perry Constantine.
And as always, I am the other half of your hosting team, Derek Ferguson. And we're just sitting here. We just got finished talking because as we record this is, of course, the day after Election Day. The most traumatic day of the year that has had so many traumatic days.
Oh, my God. Oh. It's just, I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. Like I actually just got off, I'm actually right in the middle. I'm at the end of a 36-hour fast right now. And one of the good things about the election being yesterday is that that's helped me keep my mind off food.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, you weren't, of course you could have sent you the other way. You could have started stress eating.
Oh, yeah, I know a lot of people were doing that.
Yeah, I was on Facebook today and it seemed like people were either doing a lot of stress eating or a lot of drinking.
I was doing that last night. Like, it's a good thing I had work all day yesterday. Like I had a class in the morning, class in the afternoon, and a class at night. And it's good for that because I didn't get home until 9 o'clock, and that's when I started drinking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, if listen, I think that yesterday was a day that people could have got away with a whole bunch of drinking and nobody would have.
Oh,
Because it was quite a day, and today was still quite a day.
It's we're getting close, but we'll have to see how things shake out. Because as we were talking about, like they're still good. Even if it works out in our favor, there's still a lot of shit that needs to be cleaned up.
Oh yeah. I mean, yes, I'm hoping Biden will be elected president, and it is looking like he is, because at the time that we're recording this, I was watching news upstairs, with my wife, and I think he only had like 6 more.
He's at 264 according to the Guardian right now.
Yeah, he only had like 6 more to go. So so it's a lot, but still, it's not like Joe Biden is a magic lamp that we can rub,
right?
And he's going to magically solve all the problems that we have. The infection that is Donald Trump, put a hell of a lot of pus in this country, and it's going to take a lot of antibiotics.
Oh yeah,
to get that pus out.
Yeah.
So,
but there was another tragedy a few days ago. We lost an icon. Sean Connery.
Yeah, Sean Connery, the man himself.
I mean, that was my James Bond. Like when I grew up, obviously I was born in '83, but my dad was a huge Bond fan, and like he raised me on the Connery films. So like Connery was always my Bond.
Yeah. My first James Bond movie was Diamonds Are Forever. I saw that in the movie theater, and I saw that with my father, which is why whenever I get into a discussion with people and they ask me, well, what's your favorite James Bond movie? I say, well, Diamonds Are Forever. Oh, that's a terrible movie. Well, no, it's not the best James Bond movie, but it doesn't matter to me because that's the first one I saw.
Right.
And yeah, I fell in love with it. And yeah, for me, Sean Connery, whenever I think, now when I read the books though, it's funny, when I read the books, I see and hear Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Dalton was much more like the Bond from the books.
Right. But if I'm sitting at home and I feel like a James Bond movie, 9 times out of 10, it's a Sean Connery Bond that I'm putting in there. I'm putting in like, From Russia with Love.
Oh,
Goldfinger, or Goldfinger, which to me is not the best the best Sean Connery James Bond movie is From Russia with Love.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the one I think is the best. But Goldfinger is like the James Bond movie.
Goldfinger set the template. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like every movie that came after that has got the DNA of Goldfinger in there.
Yeah. And it's you've got Q, you've got all the gadget stuff, you've got the the big master plan. Like From Russia with Love is a good old fashioned spy thriller.
Yeah. But it's not like Save the World or anything like that. They're stealing this coding machine.
Yes.
But okay, on that level, it's a much more realistic spy thriller. There's no gadgets. There's none of that stuff. But like in Goldfinger, we get the first Bond supervillain. We get, like you said, the Grand Master Plan.
Well, we do get the first one. I will, because we get him in Dr. No, right? We get Dr. No comes first. So we do have the first big supervillain there, because he had that world-ending plot too.
Okay. For the sake of argument, I'll give it to you. But I just said, because Goldfinger is like on a more grander scale. And also, as an interesting footnote, Ian Fleming, he had said that even the movie improved on his book.
Right.
He wrote the book and he said, Goldfinger's plan. Yeah, that's better than what I had in the book, and stuff like that. We get, the henchman.
Yes.
The super strong henchman in Our Job. I mean, and Our Job's influence can be seen in later henchmen like Jaws.
Right.
And, going all the way, from the Roger Moore, I mean, every supervillain in a Bond movie after Goldfinger had to have a henchman with some kind of gimmick. And stuff.
Right. So, it wasn't like Dr. No had a lot of stuff that they established in the Bond formula, but it was at the end of the movie, right? Like the first, the first 2/3 of that movie is Bond just doing like regular spy stuff, right? And then, and then in Goldfinger, the whole thing is like the last third of Dr. No.
Because Dr. No, once Bond gets to the island, then it starts to turn into this crazy pulp action adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, everything before that is pretty much a conventional spy thriller.
Yeah.
But once we get to the island, and then he meets Dr. No and everything like that, then I said, okay, this is Doc Savage shit happening here now. With the dragon and with all that other stuff. Yeah, that's going on. So, but like Goldfinger, and then of course we had the total batshit insanity of You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, see, like that's one of my You Only Live Twice is one of my favorite movies, even though it's not one of the best movies, and I do know that too. Just it's very similar to you with Diamonds Are Forever, but the thing about You Only Live Twice is I've got a personal connection to it because that was set in Japan, and parts of that movie were filmed in the area where I live.
Oh, I love it too. I love it too, even though it makes absolutely no sense.
No sense whatsoever.
Makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's got the really terrible yellow face thing at the end.
Yeah. It does introduce us to a character in there that I wish that they had spun off into his own series, Tiger Tanaka.
Yes. Him and Karim Bey. They're my favorite of Bond's allies.
The head of the Japanese Secret Service. That cat was so mad cool in that movie.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the guy travels around in his own trade, has got his own ninja school. Yeah. Why this man did not get his own movie series is, oh my God.
Yeah, played by Tetsuro Tamba. Yeah.
Even today, Quentin Tarantino should get the rights just to do that character and do a whole series of Tiger Tanaka movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Set in period.
Yes, definitely. Oh man, I would love to see a Tiger Tanaka series. Back then they could not have done it because it's because you couldn't a lead movie with an Asian actor, forget it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would love to see that shit happening now.
Oh man, it's such a cool character. Yeah, it's good. The only problem I have with that movie is that I'm sorry, I cannot buy Donald Pleasance as Blofeld. I'm sorry.
I think it's because Donald Pleasance was the first Blofeld for me, so I kind of like him.
Okay.
Just like with it's very similar to you with Diamonds Are Forever. It was your first Bond movie, so that's why.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I can't fault anybody because, just like a lot of people, their first James Bond was Roger Moore.
Right. Yeah. So, my dad actually loved Roger Moore. Right.
Yeah. My mother. Yeah.
And my dad hated Timothy Dalton. He could not stand Dalton.
My mother didn't like Sean Connery, but she loved Roger Moore.
Oh, see, yeah, my dad went back and forth between Connery and Moore, and which was his favorite. And that's why he liked Pierce Brosnan a lot, because Brosnan had that like mix of the two.
Pierce Brosnan had a unique genius in that he took the best of Sean Connery and Roger Moore and made it work.
Absolutely,
somehow.
Yeah.
You can look at his performance and you can see some of Sean Connery, you can see some of Roger Moore, and he added his own mix to it. And to me, that's why it works so well. And yeah, Pierce Brosnan, I like all of his James Bond movies, and I can't say that about any other James Bond, except for George Lazenby, of course, who only made one, and Timothy Dalton, who made two. Mm-hmm. But Pierce Brosnan, I like all of his James. I know people hate Die Another Day with a Passion, but I don't care. I like all of his movies. GoldenEye is
wonderful. Yeah,
it's like one of the top 5 James Bond movies for me. GoldenEye.
I like Die Another. I'm not a big fan of Die Another Day, but I did like Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough. I know a lot of people hate those, but I like those.
Oh, The World Is Not Enough is terrific.
Yeah. And Die Another Day, or not Die. I'm getting confused. So many dies in these titles. Tomorrow Never Dies, because that one, that introduced us to Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
So I've got that one's always got a special. Like as soon as I saw her in that movie, like I was in love with her.
Yeah, that's that's kind of like a weird kind of movie because it's got an ending that you really don't see in a James Bond. That was more like a John Woo movie. At the end.
Oh,
the shootout that's on the submarine. I'm not complaining, mind you, but it was just kind of unusual to see that much gunplay in a James Bond movie.
Because the Bond movies tend to mimic in some way what else is popular at the time, right? Because you had like Moonraker, it was, you know, trying to capitalize off like the Star Wars and the sci-fi craze, and then so I think it makes sense why you did that with Tomorrow Never Dies. You're trying to capitalize off of the, you know, the John Woo action movies that are coming out at that time.
And even there were a lot of stunts in that movie that reminded me a lot of the stunts in Hong Kong, you know, their action movies.
Oh yeah,
you know, yeah. So it had that type of flavor to me of it was like a Hong Kong action movie version of James Bond.
Right, and then you had as I was thinking of another example, Live and Let Die, right? Trying to capitalize off blaxploitation and that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah. Which is why that movie has not aged well at
Oh
all.
no. No.
It's a lot of fun to watch, but you know, it has whereas something like From Russia with Love hasn't aged really at all.
Yeah, there are some of those movies they definitely have not aged well. Like I remember in I think it was Goldfinger when Felix Leiter comes up to Bond and the girl's asking him what's going on. He like smacks her ass and he says, "Man talk, go away." And I'm like, oh wow, that would not fly today.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't fly today. Yeah. So a lot of that stuff, the casual racism and sex, and especially the casual sexism.
Oh yeah.
You know, you just have to overlook that and say, well, that's it. You know, it was what it was. And
and you got to overlook some of the stuff Connery said in interviews. Like he talked about, you know, sometimes you just got to slap a woman, just like, oh, don't say stuff like that.
Well, listen, that's how it was back then.
It was. It's just, you know, you hear like, you know, a man that you admire say stuff like that and you cringe, right?
Well, yeah, but then you know what? I don't know, because okay. Here's the best way I could put it. Maybe because since I grew up in that time, and while I do not hold with those sentiments, don't think I do, folks.
No, your wife would not stand for that.
But I understand. But I understand the mentality of that time because I grew up in that time, and I understand why men thought and said those things, and even why women said, because you had a lot of women that reinforced that type of behavior.
Oh yeah.
It was the entire culture. It wasn't just, you know, when people say, "Oh yeah, well he said these horrible things." Yeah, okay. Yeah, he said these horrible things, but you have to understand, it wasn't just him. It was the entire culture. Sean Connery wasn't just like this one lone man that like beating up on women. No, that wasn't it. It was an entire culture at that time. That's how the culture thought. I get to the same argument with people when they start screaming and hollering about H.P. Lovecraft. Well, H.P. Lovecraft was a racist. I said, well, yeah, everybody was a racist.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so what do you want? Everybody was a racist back. Oh, but that's horrible. Well, yeah, it is horrible, but
it is what it is. Yeah.
What are you going to do? Everybody was racist.
Yeah. I mean, look, I love my grandfather. I loved my grandfather, but I can't cover up the fact that he was, you know, a virulent racist, like, and a virulent anti-Semite too. Like, the only thing he hated more than black people was Jewish people. And you know what? And that's just the way he was, right? That's just the way things were back then.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry, folks. There's no use railing. I don't know. Me, I would rather, like I said, when I get into these arguments about Lovecraft and everything like that, and I'm sorry, I am much more concerned about the racism that's alive and well today than I am about the racism of a Pope writer that's been dead 100 years.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I couldn't give a shit about how racist Lovecraft was. I really don't.
Besides, I mean, all of Lovecraft's stuff is in the public domain anyway, so it's not like he's getting any money or his state's getting any money or anything like that. So it's you know, people gotta. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm much more concerned about what's happening right now as opposed to. It's interesting to look at, like, from an analysis point of view, because I did that with Burroughs, with Tarzan, and comparing it to Charles Saunders, and it was really interesting to do it in that kind of analysis of it. But I'm not going to, you know, get mad at anyone for reading Burroughs' Tarzan.
Yeah, well, listen, I almost got my ass kicked on the subway for reading Tarzan.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me this story.
Yeah, I'm sitting. For those of you who haven't heard this story, I'm a kid. I'm about like 14, 15 years old. And of course, I'm on the subway. I'm coming back and forth from school. So I'm reading.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting on the subway, the G train or the A train, I forget which. I'm minding my business and I'm reading a Tarzan book.
Mhm.
And these three guys come up to me. And they're not kids like me. These are grown men. And they said, well, what are you reading that racist shit for? Well, why are you reading that white man shit? And they actually would stand in front of me debating, we should take him on a train and kick his ass for reading this shit.
Yeah.
So that went on for a couple of minutes. And one guy finally just bent down to me and said, listen, man, you want to read that shit? You read that in your house. Don't be bringing that out here for people. Yeah, he did. And you know what? From that day on, I never read a Tarzan book outside the house.
Yeah. I bet you wish you had a Kindle back then.
Listen, I'm telling you. And people say, really? I said, listen, you'd be surprised what people got their ass kicked for back in the day when I was
I believe it. I believe it. Yeah.
But but you know what? We should do a whole other episode about racial issues in popular fiction.
Oh my God, we could do like a 7-part series on that. At least.
And that is a cue for you folks out there, if you would like indeed to see us do a series about racism in popular fiction, films, comic books, movies, whatever. Well, you know what you have to do. You either, let us know on the Superhero Cinephiles Facebook group or email Perry or myself and let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so I got just a few brief pieces of news, just a few things to mention. One of them is, there have been, since the Zack Snyder Justice League cut, there have been all these rumors going around that David Ayer is going to have the director's cut of Suicide Squad on HBO Max, but he's come out and he said that it's not true, right? Which, you know what? Honestly, good. Like, I mean, I'm so sick of this Snyderverse and the resurrection of the Snyderverse stuff. I'm just so done with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, it's like folks, you're beating a dead horse. And, I'm just, like tired, really. Yeah. I mean, I'm not interested anymore. I don't want to hear anymore. And people say to me, oh, really? You're not? No, I don't. Life is about moving forward.
Yeah.
Always moving forward. Let's stop going backwards. Let's, I mean, that's not to say that I don't feel for the people that want to see the thing. And matter of fact, I have HBO Max and I'm not a hypocrite. When it comes on, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like
people are treating it like it's the second coming.
Yeah. I don't know what people expect to see. I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, is it really that important that you see Darkseid?
I know. And it's not like he's going to have a big role. Like, it's just going to be like a thing at the end. It's going to be a stinger. That's all it's going to be. That's all it was intended to be. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what people intend to see. But again, like I said, God bless them. If that will make your year, who am I to stand in the way of your enjoyment?
Yeah. Also, and this is something we've talked about too, right? Because Wonder Woman 1984 is set for Christmas Day, but the Warner Brothers CEO, Ann Sarnoff, when she was asked about it, she was asked if it was definitive, and she said, "I hope so." So, who knows what the hell is going to happen? I mean, it's like we've said, just either take the year off or just go with VOD, because you this constant, here's when it's going to be. Oh, we're going to push it back. Here, it's just going to. People are just going to get pissed off with it, and they're just going to eventually just throw up their hands, and they're not going to go to the theater at all.
Yeah, you saw. Okay, to me, the studio that does the Fast and Furious, they just said right from the start, okay, you know what? We're going to release it next year. Bingo. Yeah. End of story. That's it. We're just going to release it next year. That's what everybody else should have did. They should have just said, you know what? We're just going to hold everything till next year.
Yeah.
Okay, either that or release it to streaming. I know I got into an argument with some people where I was saying, because I was in favor of the James Bond movie, going to streaming. And I said that in a group. I said, put us. Oh, no, James Bond movies belong on the big screen. I said, what are you talking about? 6 to 8 months after it's on the screen anyway, it's going to go to streaming anyhow.
And you know what? I
what's the
guarantee you,
difference?
most people, their first interaction with James Bond was probably like me. It was on home video.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
what's the
I don't know. I mean, Bond is, you know what? Here's like, Bond is not like an MCU level movie. You don't need the big screen theater experience necessarily for that.
No, no. I mean, it's nice to have, but
Yeah.
it's not. But it's not necessary. Like you said, it's not like, uh, yeah, it's not like Aquaman or
Mhm.
the Avengers or something like
Right.
that. Where or I mean, where having that huge screen truly does enhance, your experience of
Mhm.
watching the movie. No, James Bond, you don't need that. They have James Bond marathons on TV all the time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I
I
can
mean
turn
that.
on my TV right now, and there's a James Bond marathon
Oh
going
hell
on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a thing actually for a while. Like me and my cousins, we would on Christmas Day, right? All the all the other people they're off talking about whatever boring shit they're talking about, and the rest of us we're in the family room and we're watching the Bond marathon on TNT or TBS or Spike or whatever it was.
Right, exactly. So I don't understand this pushback. No, no, no. It's got to be in the movie theater. No, it doesn't.
No, no.
Especially like I said, nowadays it's not like back when this first started and it took like a year for a movie, 6 to 8 months. A movie that's in the theater, it's on Amazon or HBO or Showtime or what have you. And please. So.
So in this is a bit of a flashback, but a while back, Patton Oswalt said some stuff about he shared some stories about Wesley Snipes from the set of Blade Trinity, like about how him and Goyer were always clashing, how Snipes was high all the time, and he would only come into the set for close-ups, otherwise they'd use a stand-in, and he would communicate to Goyer through post-it notes, and one time he tried to strangle Goyer. And so Snipes has recently come out and he's, he said like Oswalt is lying about all this. And you know what? I don't know about you, but I'm tempted to lean towards Oswalt's version of events on this. How about you?
I think what we have here is a Rashomon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where I don't think Snipes is lying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Patton Oswalt, he strikes me as a pretty straight up guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he's lying. I don't think Snipes is lying. On the other hand, I don't think either of them are remembering exactly how it was.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own version of what happened that is not 100% correct, but they're not wrong either.
Right. That old my favorite saying, there are three sides to every story. There's your side, there's my side, and there's what really happened.
Right. Yeah. And you got to remember that we're talking about something that was like 20 years ago?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, given the passage of time and their own personal involvement, because I do believe Wesley Snipes was an executive producer.
Yeah.
He wasn't just the starter; he was the executive. Yeah, so he may have been feeling himself a little bit, in that. And like I said, I don't think anybody's lying, but I also don't think everybody's telling the truth exactly as it actually happened. I think they're telling it as they remember how it happened.
Yeah.
Which is what happens. I mean, if me and you are involved in the same incident, and 20 years later, somebody asks us about the incident, I highly doubt that we're going to come up with the exact same story. We're going to tell the exact same story.
I mean, I've had situations where, we're sharing I remember this one time I was sharing a story about with someone else, and one of my friends was standing there with me. Now, he wasn't part of this story, right? But he's heard it so many times that his mind actually made him think he was actually there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I'm like, I turned him, I'm like, you weren't there. He's like, I wasn't. I'm like, no. And he's like, and I told him, like, we met you like a year after that happened. He's like, oh.
Yeah. But he's just heard it, like you said, he's heard it so many times, he's absorbed it, and he thinks it was there. Husbands and wives, you ask me and Patricia, we be the same incident that we were in. You ask her version of what happened. You ask me my version. You're going to swim. You're going to look at it and say, what is wrong with the two of you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's two completely different versions of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now we can move into the meat and potatoes of this episode, and that's the movie you picked, which was Kick-Ass.
Yep, from 2010.
2010, yeah, which features not one but two Quicksilvers.
Directed by Matthew Vaughn.
Who also directed X-Men First Class, and who needs to fucking direct a James Bond movie, because after The Kingsman and after First Class, like, how has this guy not been tapped to direct a James Bond movie?
Your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea, because Matthew Vaughn is like one of the best directors of action that we have working now. The guy knows how to direct a fight scene and action scenes with, I mean, such utter clarity and precision.
And such just, outright fun, right? Like, his action scenes are amazing to watch.
Yeah, you look at it, and especially for guys like us. I mean, we've not to brag, but we've seen it all when it comes to action movies.
Right.
But I watched this movie last night, and I felt like I was watching something brand new all over again.
Yeah.
That terrific scene with Chloe Grace Moretz, who and this was the movie where she became a breakout star.
Oh yeah. There was so much controversy about her character because she swears all the time in this movie. And it is funny though, like, people got more worked up, and Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who played Red Mist, he noted that, he's like, it's funny, people are getting all pissed off about her swearing all the time, but they don't get pissed off about the fact that she cuts people in half.
And he's 100% right. It was a lot of hypocrisy attached to this movie, where people were complaining about the language, that she was using. But she's a 12-year-old girl that is cutting up people with swords and knives, and capping people with headshots and stuff like that. There's that amazing scene where she assaults the headquarters of the crime boss, played by Mark Millar. And I mean, like, she kills about 25 people in that scene alone.
Oh God! And set to Bad Reputation, no less. That's such an, like, every time I see that scene, I always get pumped up.
Yeah. And it's like one of the best action scenes I have ever seen in my life. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Matthew Vaughn. I have no idea why this man is not been directing a James Bond or an Indiana Jones movie.
Well, because Eon hasn't gotten their head out of their ass yet.
No. True that.
But this movie, it's based on a comic book by Mark Millar, who and this is the thing, like, Mark Millar is such a frustrating writer, right? Because he's got good ideas. He's got really good ideas. And he's like, you got Kick-Ass, you got Kingsman, you got Wanted. Even the idea behind Civil War was a good idea. The Ultimates, right? A good idea. Superman Red Son, right? And he has written good stuff too. Like Superman Red Son was a really good book. And I haven't read it, but I've heard nothing but good things about his Superman Adventures series, which was set in the world of the animated series.
Okay.
He's got so much potential, and he can be a good writer when he disciplines himself. But the problem is he's got this inner maladjusted 12-year-old who always wants to come out and play. And it makes him do, like, stupid infantile shit. Right? So you've got like for example, like the Hulk in the Ultimates being horny all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just like stupid shit like that. And you're like, why do you think this is funny?
Yeah. He's like a 6-year-old who finds out that he can get a reaction just from saying the word fuck.
Yes. Yeah.
So he says it all the time.
Yes, exactly.
And, without, and yeah, I'm the type of person, I don't understand why just saying fuck, that's supposed to be funny, but I see people crack, well, I don't understand. Why is that funny?
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But that's what, like, if he'd just been that, like, you take someone like, Garth Ennis, who is a legitimately good writer, and he does buckle down and he can do the infantile shit, but he also does stuff that's really intelligent too. Like, Preacher's got a lot of that kind of humor in it, but it's also got, it's very serious, weighty issues about faith and religion and all this kind of stuff in it. And, his Punisher run too, a lot of that, The Boys, right? I mean, but Millar, he's like, he's got that little spark in him, but he doesn't nurture it. It reminds me of something you said back when, I think it was the first thing you reviewed of me, way back when we were doing fanfic. And you said that there was something I wrote that made you wish you were standing behind me so you could slap me on the head and ask me, why don't you write like that all the time?
Yeah.
And even to this day, that is the thing that I always remember about, that is the piece of criticism that always sticks out in my mind. Because you were right. I should have been paying more attention. I should have been thinking more about that. And I feel like doing the same. I wish I was doing this. I want to say the same thing to Millar.
Well, yeah, because you know what? It aggravates me when I see somebody that is capable of doing more, and they just settle for the cheap and easy.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, listen. Sometimes you go for the cheap and easy for a reason.
Right.
But do it for a reason. Don't do it just because, it's cheap and easy.
Yeah. And Millar does that too much. He goes for the cheap and easy stuff. Like he does, he's very casual about things. He's got very casual, rape and misogyny and stuff like that in his books. And it's just unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary.
Now, but on the other hand, can it be said that maybe he just knows his audience and that's what he's writing for?
It could be. Yeah, and you're right. That's a legitimate argument. And his audience loves him, right? His audience does love him.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, if that's who he's writing for, and I know I get into this discussion a lot of times with people when they argue with me about Tyler Perry, who I say, well, Tyler Perry has found his audience and that's who he's writing for. He's not writing for you. He's writing for them.
Yeah.
Well, he could do better. Well, sure he could, but he has no incentive to because he's found his audience. If you find your audience and they're loyal to you, you write for them. You don't say, well, you know what? I'm going to go write for those guys that are sitting back over there. Because those guys sitting back over there, they're not reading your stuff. They're reading, whoever. They're not right. So you take a risk by going for them, but you alienate the people that that you've got.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was just going to say that you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's the same. It's like the Adam Sandler argument when we talked about the Cobbler, right? He does things because his audience wants them. That's definitely a valid thing. It just for me personally, it is frustrating because I see these nuggets of these really awesome ideas in his work. Like The Ultimates is all about the whole idea of the Ultimate, right? The whole idea behind The Ultimates is if superheroes existed in the real world, what would the government be doing with them? Well, there'd be a superhuman arms race, obviously. That whole nugget of an idea, that whole thing in there, that's very prescient. It's very topical, and it's something that should be explored, that deserves to be explored. But it's all wrapped up in dick and fart jokes, and it just gets squandered. And it's just, and that's why it's just frustrating. So yeah, but you're right. It's just personally frustrating for me is all.
Oh yeah, well listen, I mean, like you said, it's frustrating when you see those little nuggets and you say, "Oh man, I wish he would explore it." See, me, I read The Ultimates, and I was turned off first of all from the politics because I felt that I was being lectured to as far as the politics go, and I am just really not a fan of people. Okay, I'm not a fan of writers just assuming that people get superpowers and all of a sudden they become flaming assholes. Which seems to be Millar's whole thing, that you can't have superpowers without being an asshole.
Right, and that's the other frustrating thing about him is because he can do it without that. Like he did that with Superman, but
right, exactly. He knows how to go the other way. Yeah.
And he should have just, he should have not, shit all over Grant Morrison years ago and just stuck with him, because Grant Morrison was able to rein him in. And like when they worked together, when they were friends and they were working together, like they produced some awesome stuff. Like they did Aztec, the Ultimate Man, which is still one of my favorite DC comics ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a great run on Flash as well. But then, Miller got famous and he basically, shat all over Morrison. Don't know exactly what happened, but Morrison said that the only thing he'll say about Miller is that he destroyed my faith in humanity, and that if he found out he'd accidentally hit Miller in the car, he wouldn't slow down. But yeah, so and Grant Morrison's a pretty chill guy, so for him to say that kind of stuff. So yeah, but anyway, so all that, let's talk about the movie. And this is one of the things, like when Miller's stuff gets translated into a movie, it's really good, right?
You always hear most people, and that's always the number one complaint. Oh, well, the movie is never as good as the comic book. With Miller, it's the exact opposite. The movies made out of his material are always better than the source material.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's always better.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Wanted, which I read the Wanted comic book, and that is like Miller at his Milleriest.
It's a slog.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's utterly terrible. Like that comic book has nothing redeeming in it whatsoever.
No.
But the Wanted movie is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the Kick-Ass comic book, but it's the same thing with, Captain America Civil War, right? The Civil War comic book, utterly dog shit. But the movie is one of the best movies Marvel's ever made. And I haven't read the Kick-Ass comic, but I assume it's probably the same thing, same situation.
I went into Kick-Ass. I went to see it. I didn't know anything about it. I went to see it purely on the strength of the director.
Mm.
Vaughn, because I think he had made. I'd have to look this up, but I believe that he had did X-Men.
No, I think X-Men came after, but he did do Layer Cake.
Right. Okay. Layer Cake. I know. Yeah. That because I remember distinctly. I went to see this based on what he had done before, so it must have been Layer Cake. I've seen Layer Cake, which features Daniel Craig, by the way. That's like
right. That was like one of his big roles.
One of his early roles.
Yeah. So First Class came out the year after this. It came out in 2011.
Right. Okay. So that's why I went to see it, and it was a superhero movie, and I said, okay, well, I'll go see it, even though I don't know anything about it. And I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this the very first time I saw this.
Yeah.
The actors all it's got and they got a guy in this movie that I had seen from another movie called Sex Drive. He plays one of the friends of the main character, played by Aaron Johnson, who, as you mentioned at the beginning, played Quicksilver.
Yeah, in Avengers: Age of Ultron, and was definitely the better of the two Quicksilvers that we've seen.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, one of his best friends is played by the other guy that played Quicksilver. So we got the two guys that played Quicksilver in a superhero movie. How cool is that?
And they both and we mentioned this briefly in the last episode, but Aaron Taylor Johnson, man, that guy really grew into himself.
Yeah, but you know what? I looked at him in this movie, and you could see that even back then he was like kind of chunky but he wasn't like muscular, but you could see. Because in the X-Men movie, he was like, wow. I said, what?
You mean the Avengers?
The Avengers movie. Matter of fact, I didn't even recognize him as being the same guy.
No. In fact, when I remember when they announced him as playing Quicksilver and they showed the first set photos of him, and I'm looking at him like, this guy kind of looks familiar. That name sounds familiar. Where have I heard that name before? And I looked him up. I'm like, no fucking way.
Yeah, a total transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's wonderful. The other friend, is played by a guy named Clark Duke. And I
Yeah,
wanted to mention him because, folks, if you get a chance, rent this movie called Sex Drive. One of the funniest comedies I have ever seen in my life. I'm telling you. And this cat, he plays a friend with the glasses.
Yeah.
And he's one of the stars of Sex Drive, and he steals the movie. And that's all I'm going to say about it. That's your homework assignment for the week. Find Sex Drive and watch it. But
he was also in. He also had a brief part in Superbad as well.
Yeah.
And in Bad Moms.
Mm-hmm. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
And he's good in this movie. Everybody is good in this movie.
You got Lindsay Fonseca, who from Nikita as well. She's in this.
They got my girl in here. She's in here for a little small role. Yancey Butler.
Oh yeah, I was so surprised when I saw her in this movie.
Yeah,
I'm looking at her. I'm like, that's not Yancey, because we'd just done Witchblade, like 1 month or two back, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching the movie. I'm like, that's not Yancey Butler.
Yes, it is.
And then I looked it up and like, no shit, that's Yancey Butler.
Yes, when I saw this in the theater, I think I was the only person in the theater that clapped when she first appeared. And everybody in the theater, they're looking, what's wrong with him? Oh shit, it's fucking Yancey Butler, man. Don't you know who she? And of course, nobody knew who she was except for me. But I was just delighted to see her show up in this movie. She plays the wife of Mark Strong, who is, of course, the crime boss in this movie, and. He's one of those crime bosses that you can see that he enjoys being a crime boss. Which I love.
Yeah, he's really good in this. Like Mark Strong is another one of those actors who he just completely disappears into whatever role he's playing. Like he's got a very almost like Stanley Tucci-esque performance in this.
Matter of fact, he looks a lot like Stanley Tucci in this movie.
He does. Like if you see, I kept thinking, I'm like, that's not Stanley Tucci, but I feel like it's Stanley Tucci.
Yeah. And I love his henchmen. I love the guys that work for him because you can tell that these are guys that learned how to be gangsters by watching Goodfellas.
Yeah.
They're not real mafia guys, but they like to think they are.
Yeah, I love that scene when he's interrogating his guy at the beginning, and the guy keeps insisting. He's like, "I never said Batman."
Yeah. Yeah, I know. They're getting ready to cut off his finger, but I never said it was Batman. And the other guy say, well, yeah, you kind of did say it was Batman. No, I didn't, This is what you're arguing about.
Or when they put the guy they're trying to figure out how to torture the guy, and they're like, look, he says the thing's not ready, but we can use the microwave instead.
Yeah, like I said, these are guys... You could tell these guys, this is how they learn how to be gangsters, by watching Goodfellas and Scarface. And, they're not real adept at their job. Even Mark Strong says that at one point, because at one point he kills a guy he thinks is Kick-Ass, but it's actually a Kick-Ass impersonator on his way to a kid's party. And his henchman is saying, well, what are you doing? You're getting your hands dirty now? He said, well, I got to because you guys aren't doing your jobs. I told you a week ago to get this guy. What are you doing? And the guy who plays his bodyguard at the end, right? He walks into the room and he's like, everything's okay. And he goes and he takes a bazooka down. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these guys are utterly inept. I mean,
oh God, yeah. I
mean, okay, Kick-Ass, he's inept at being a superhero, but that's okay because the guys that he are up against are inept as well. As a matter of fact, the only characters in the movie that have any kind of competence is, of course, Big Daddy, played by Nicolas Cage, and his daughter.
Yeah, Hit Girl, as you mentioned, played by Chloe Grace Moritz.
Yeah.
And, man, Nicolas Cage, this is one of his best roles.
Oh, you know what? And it surprises me that this is a movie, and people, they talk about Nicolas Cage like he's a dog and everything like that. One of the things that I really gets on my goat when people say, well, he makes too many movies. Well, he's an actor. This is his job. He makes movies.
I believe, and I'm not sure 100%, but I believe he had some money problems, and so now he's got like a whole lot of stuff to pay off, and so that's why he does all these like low budget, crappy movies. He's just cranking them out for the paycheck, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, he makes a lot of movies, but you know, like you said, if he's got bills to pay, fine. And you don't have to see everything he makes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, you don't have to. But this is a performance that I feel gets lost when people are talking about Nick Cage movies, because I very rarely hear this one ever gets mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. And well, the thing about Cage is that, you know, people are, and I see this happen with a lot of, like, this happened with Ben Affleck for a long time too, right? People are like, well, look, he's in all these crap. Well, he's doing it because he's building up with Affleck, he was building up his clout, and basically he was training to be a director. So he was working like everybody he could. And with Cage, he's just doing it for the paycheck, right? And, you know, I can't really fault him for being a working actor and, you know, trying to pay. I mean, if I had the option to do a whole bunch of low budget movies, I'd probably do it too. And you got a lot, there are actors who do this, right? I mean, Christopher Walken, right? The only time he turns something down is if he's got a scheduling conflict. Or, what's his name from Machete?
Oh, Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo, thank you. Yeah. He will do, like, he will work. The reason he's in all these direct-to-video movies because he loves working with young directors.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's why I never understand that people, what they make to it. People make movies for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
You know, and, okay, Nicolas Cage had his artistic period where he was doing movies strictly, you know, he was taking the roles for, you know, whatever acting reasons that he did. Like, what's that movie, Leaving Las Vegas?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had his artistic period where he, you know, did these art films, or he did movies, you know, to get the awards and get that. But like in the last, 20 years, I would say, Nicolas Cage just does movies just to be doing movies, just for the fun of it, I think. That's what he's doing. And he's having obviously the man's having a good time.
Yeah. And he does, and every now, like, yeah, he's got, like, I won't go to a movie just because it's Nicolas Cage, because same thing with Sam Jackson, right? Sam Jackson will do anything if the money's right. So I'm not going to go to a movie just because they're in it. But if someone tells me this is a good movie, then I'll go see it. And in the case of Cage in this movie, right? I mean, he does a really good job as Big Daddy. And I love how he's doing this, the pseudo Adam West impersonation. This is Adam West, as directed by Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I paid attention to it more because you had mentioned it the last time we said we were going to do it. And I said, you know, that's okay. Well, I'm really going to pay attention to it now. And I had to pause the movie at certain parts because I was cracking up. Because, yeah, it was so odd. You know, he had the cadence down right as the, you know, the whole Nicolas Cage. When they, especially when they have an encounter with Kick-Ass and they follow him back to his house. Mm-hmm. And Big Daddy's talking to him and he's telling her, you know, and when he's talking to her, I said, yeah, that's Adam West. Right.
Doesn't he even do the fist thing too at one point? Like, yeah, he's like his hand. You can tell that when he was preparing for this role, he went back and he watched that series.
Yes, he did. He absolutely did. It's you know, which considering that that's what he does, it makes it all the more shocking when we see the violence that he commits. Because there's a scene in the warehouse where he takes out Frank. His boys are waiting for him.
Yeah.
And he takes them out. And this is kind of like a warm-up for a scene we'll see later on in the Kingsman movie where it's that church scene.
Yes.
So that warehouse scene is kind of, to me, that's kind of like a warm-up for that later church slaughter. And
unless I'm mistaken, that's all one continuous shot, isn't it?
One continuous shot where Big Daddy kills like a dozen of Frank's men, and he's going up ladders and he's jumping off of the, you know, and it's one unbroken shot.
Yeah, very much. What was the movie? You know, the John Woo movie. I'm blanking on it. The hospital scene.
Hard Boiled.
Hard Boiled, yes, very hard boiled vibes in that scene.
Yeah, Hard Boiled, right.
And like we said, right, we're guys who, you know, when everyone else was raving about The Matrix, we're just like, go watch Hard Boiled and then get back to us.
Yeah, right? That's what I was telling people. I said, well, apparently you not watched a whole lot of Hong Kong action.
Yeah. But and then you watch this and you see, like, you know, that's what. So when we say, like, you know, Vaughn knows what he's doing, Vaughn knows how to direct an action scene, we know what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, because I'm watching this warehouse fight and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, oh, shit, you know, because it is done rarely does one get to see action / fight scenes done so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you see this, and especially, I mean, that scene that was in Kingsman, oh my God, that was just like, you know, these are movies that you look at and see. When I see a scene like that, and if the filmmaker makes me go, how in the hell did he film that? He's done his job. Because I cannot figure out how he did that.
Yeah. That was an amazing.
Which is how it's supposed to be. It's like when you go see a magic act and the magician makes the Statue of Liberty disappear, and you're supposed to say, well, how in the fuck did he do that? You know, same thing with action sequences. You're supposed to watch it. You're supposed to wonder, how in the world did they pull that off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how he, because he's got a mustache, but he wears this mask. So the disguise is he makes it a handlebar mustache. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That kind of makes sense because that's the only part of his face that's exposed.
Yeah.
So he puts it on there. So, you know, the fake handlebar mustache. So people, you know, if they see him and they describe to the cop, well, he had on a handlebar mustache, you know, and then.
But it is just kind of funny that he does that instead of just getting a full face mask.
Yeah. Not exactly an overthinker, this guy.
No. Well, he's overthinking it just in the wrong way.
Yeah, in the wrong way. Right. There you go.
And I also love his bad dad jokes, right? Like when they're watching the video of Kick-Ass and he comes over, he's like, more like ass kick, and he laughs. And then Hit Girl just rolls her eyes. She's like, that's not even funny. That makes no sense.
Yeah. You know what? And it seems like that kind of make you wish that it was a Big Daddy Hit Girl movie.
Yeah. And because I watched that scene and I'm like, you know what? That's going to be me and my daughter.
Yeah.
I already told my wife, I'm like, you know what? Our kid is going to hear swear words so much that you better be prepared when she starts talking and you know, you start hearing fuck in a little high pitched voice because that's coming.
No, my God. That poor woman.
Every time I'm like, I was like, yeah, so, you know, our baby's first word is going to be, she's like, no. So it's like a running gag we got here.
Don't worry. Listen, don't worry. Things aren't going to work out the way that you think they're going to work. I have found out that with children, things rarely work out the way you think that they're going to work out.
Yeah. But that moments like that too, they also help to establish that relationship between Big Daddy and Hit Girl, right?
Yeah, because you can see, despite the fact that they are killers and murderers, they do have a loving father-daughter relationship.
Yeah. And it's a very strange, but this is some talented writing, right? Because they take these concepts that should be, you know, horrifying to most people, but they put it in this daddy-daughter relationship, and it makes sense when she's like, I hate getting shot in the chest, right? And it's just
yeah, because he's trying out a bulletproof vest,
right?
And he's very calmly and rationally explaining to her that he has to shoot her in the chest so that she'll know how the sensation feels, so that when she's actually in that moment, she won't flinch because she'll know what that feels like. And then she thinks about it for a minute, and then she starts negotiating with him. Okay, well, I'll let you shoot me in the chest twice, but we got to go for ice cream, and you got to get me there. And then they go into this father-daughter thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then they go back to business. He said, "Okay, Pumpkin, I'm good," and he shoots her.
Yeah. But it's if you change the dialogue in that, like they could easily be talking about, you know, eat your vegetables or something.
Exactly. That is exactly the vibe that I got from that scene, where in another context, it could have been, well, sweetie, you got to eat your vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, I'll eat my vegetables if you buy me that doll and everything. It's that same sort of vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the genius of the relationship between the two characters, is that if we don't buy that they are a father and daughter, then nothing works.
No, it does not work. Their relationship, their role in the movie, it hinges on you buying that father-daughter relationship and believing that he's a man who really loves his daughter. Because you can easily, if this is if this is in the hands of a lesser performer or a lesser writer or a lesser director, it could easily be this guy's a psychopath who's psychologically torturing this little girl.
Right.
Which
exactly.
in a way he is, but the way that it's presented here really makes you buy into that father-daughter. And it's not until after you watch the movie that you're sitting there and you're thinking like, holy shit, that guy's a fucking psychopath.
But okay, and this is the way that I took it. Yeah, he's an example of the one bad day theory. He had the bad day where he was framed, he had to go to jail, and his wife died, and everything like that. So when he comes out and he takes on this persona of Big Daddy and he starts training his daughter, he's training his daughter so that she can protect herself against the bad things that happen to him. He knows he's not going to be there forever. He's teaching her how to shoot and kill and everything like that. But that's only so that she won't have to suffer what he suffered.
Oh, that's part of the genius, right? Like they are able to make it in a way that you don't really realize how fucking insane he is until after the movie's over and you start thinking about it.
Yeah, right. At the time you're saying, he's got a point. But he's done a number on this little girl's head. Yeah. Because she does things in this movie that no 12-year-old girl should be doing. Let's face it. But again, what I appreciate is that while I don't agree why he did what he did, I understand it in the context of the movie. I understand why he did what he did.
And that's what a good movie's supposed to do, right? If the movie is written well, and not just movies, right? Books, comics, anything. If it's written well and it's presented well enough, then you can make the audience go along with some really horrifying stuff, right? So like you look at the Godfather movies, right? I mean, Michael Corleone is a fucking scumbag.
Oh, he's a monster.
Right. But you watch those movies and you're like, well, I can kind of understand him. Or I just rewatched Apocalypse Now the other day. Martin Sheen's almost as crazy as Marlon Brando in that movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
but you buy it. You buy it because of the way it's presented and the strength of those performances. And that's what good writing does. It makes you understand, even if you don't agree with them, you can understand where these characters are coming from.
As a matter of fact, you know what? I watched Apocalypse Now maybe like a dozen times, and it wasn't until like the 12th time I watched it that I said, okay, that's why they sent him, because he's just as crazy as Kurtz.
Yeah.
That's why they sent him. They said, it's just like, okay, you send a thief to catch a thief. Well, you send a madman to kill a madman.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's why they said. Let me ask you a question, getting off the subject for a bit. Mm-hmm. You said you just recently watched it. Did you watch the extended version with the French plantation?
So see, this is the reason why I watched it, because for years I only had Redux, right? I had never seen the theatrical cut. Okay. And then not too long ago, I was at a video store and they had the complete dossier, right? And then, of course, Coppola fucks me over a few years later and releases the final cut, but that's a different story. But so I had the complete dossier, and that has both the theatrical cut and Redux on it, right?
Right, yeah.
Which they do it in a really bizarre way. I don't know who the hell planned this DVD, but the logical thing would be you put the theatrical cut on one disc, you put the Redux on the other disc, right?
Right.
They cut it into two parts. So
what
the first half of the theatrical cut and Redux is on disc one. The second half of both is on disc. I don't know what they were thinking when they did that, but
yeah, because the Blu-ray that I have, that's how it's done. The theatrical version is on one disc, and the Redux is on another.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, my little rant out of the way. Like, so I finally decided I'm going to sit down and watch the theatrical cut because for years this debate's been going back and forth about which is better, the Redux or the theatrical cut. And so I sat down and I watched it, and I liked that the plantation scene wasn't in there. I will say that. Because that scene is just like nothing but navel gazing. But I did feel like they were missing a lot of other key stuff. Like a lot of other stuff that really helps inform Martin Sheen's character, right? Like, for example, when they find the people on the boat and they think they're smuggling something and they open fire on them and they find out it's just a puppy.
Yeah.
And then Martin Sheen and the woman survives, right? And she's injured. And they're like, oh, we have to get her to some friendlies. Then he goes and just shoots her in the head. And he's like, I told you not to stop.
Yeah, I told you not to stop. Yeah.
Right. That's just a powerful scene that says so much about his character. I think it's so important to the movie and to his character that that scene alone being cut out of the theatrical cut makes me prefer Redux.
Okay. I'm just curious because I know I always get into debates with people. They say that they hate the Redux because they don't like the French plantation scene, which I would freely admit, no, it does not add a single thing to the movie. It doesn't.
Right.
And you're right, it's purely navel gazing. But to me, I like it because it adds a sort of quasi mystical element to the movie.
It's also interesting because of the history it goes into about the French colonization of Vietnam.
Right. Yeah.
That stuff is interesting. I will say that, but it's just the whole romance subplot with him and the wife there. It just feels so out of place in the rest of the movie.
Because it's like, as he's going down the river, it's like he's going back in time. Because when he ends up where Kurtz is at, it's like almost like a prehistoric.
Oh, now you make me want to rewatch the Redux and think about it with that frame of reference in mind.
Yeah. So that's one reason why I like that. The further down the river he goes, looking for Kurt, the more it's like he's going back in time. And when he goes to that French plantation and the way that they just like appear out of the mist and everything like that, it's almost like he's interacting with ghosts. It's almost like the ghosts of these French people.
I like that interpretation.
Yeah. So that now
who knew you were this deep?
No, right? I have my moment. It's the company I keep. But yeah. So while I do agree that no, it doesn't add a single thing to the movie, I do appreciate it being there. And occasionally I'll throw on the Redux because I just like that part. I just like that feeling that it adds to the movie. It's almost like I said, it's almost like a quasi-mystical type of feel it adds to the movie. Weren't we supposed to be talking about Kick-Ass?
Yeah. But yeah, so we're using that as Apocalypse Now is just another example of making these terrible people into interesting characters.
Oh yeah, right.
And you know what? And speaking of terrible people who are interesting characters, Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Chris D'Amico, Red Mist, right?
Yeah. He's a lot of fun in this movie.
He's a lot of fun. I felt so bad for the guy at the beginning of the movie when he's in the comic shop, and it's so clear that Dave starts to walk up to him, and Chris looks up at him, and he gets this smile on his face. It's so clear, like he just wants a friend to talk about comics with.
Yeah. And you can see that this is a character, not only does he want friends, he wants the approval of his father so badly.
Yeah.
That he's willing to do it. Like he hatches that crazy scheme. He says, okay, well, listen, you want to catch a superhero? Okay, well, make me a superhero. I want to be a superhero.
Yeah. And he's like, I love when he's like, you'll have to fuck someone over. And he's like, oh, nobody big. And he mentions one. They're like, oh, we can't fuck him over. He's like, what about Tony? He's like, Tony, yes, fuck Tony. I hate Tony.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh yeah, Tony. Oh yeah, but nobody likes Tony anyway. And the very next cut you see, they're reporting that Tony has been apprehended by the police. I said, well, damn, that didn't take long at all. I said, who did Tony piss off? What did he do?
Poor Tony.
Yeah, Tony they gave up Tony with no problem.
Yeah. Biggest victim in the movie is Tony.
Yes.
But this is I do like how it is. It's funny that this movie works in a really interesting way because it starts off as like a very realistic idea of what would happen if somebody put on a costume and went out to fight crime. But then in the third act, it becomes increasingly ridiculous and over the top. And somehow that works. It doesn't undermine the premise, right?
Yeah, because it starts out, and we could do a whole series of these this subgenre of superhero movies that they're about superheroes who don't have superpowers.
Well, not only that, but they're superheroes who are like in these they're like the kind of real, like based on like the real life superhero phenomenon you've seen it with like people dressed up in costumes and going out to do good deeds and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you've got Super, you've got Blank Man, which probably was the first one of them actually, and there are a few other ones too.
Yeah, and like you said, you make a good point in that this movie does start out as an indictment of, well, it's absolutely ridiculous and stupid for
Mhm.
a sane person to put on a costume and think that they can go out and fight crime. But by the time we get to the third act, it's pretty much more or less a conventional superhero movie now.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when he shows up with the jetpack.
Yes.
I mean, so wait a minute. This is so different from the movie that we started out with, because and it should be noted that he does gain superpowers of a sort
Right.
through his misguided actions when he tries to stop a robbery and he gets stabbed and gets hit by a car.
Yeah, and not only that, he gets the shit beat out of him. He gets hit by this car, and then he's got all these pins in his bones. So like he's like half metal now. So it's strengthened his bones, but not only that, but it fucked up his nerve endings too. So he can't really feel pain anymore.
Right. So basically, he could take a hell of a beating, which in itself, I guess, is a superpower that he gets. Well, he treats it like one.
Yeah.
So I guess we can say that, but nobody else in the movie really has superpowers. Big Daddy and Hit Girl are basically acrobats with guns.
Right, yeah. And Hit Girl, man, like she kicks all sorts of ass in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she takes out more people in this movie than anybody else.
Oh yeah.
It's all her. She racks up the body count in this movie. Big Daddy only has that one scene that's in the warehouse, but she's got like 2 or 3 major action sequences where it's like she's just taking out everybody in sight.
I do love that, Kick-Ass's whole strategy at the end. It's basically just, sit back, wait until she kills everybody, and then come in with the jetpack.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's his whole plan, which to give him credit is a plan that works.
Yeah, it's a plan that makes sense.
But once we get to that thing once we get to that third act, pretty much we're in a conventional superhero movie now.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? I completely lost my train of thought. Anyway, you take the ball. I'll think about what I was going to say.
Okay. What can I go on about? Omari Hardwick as Sergeant Marcus Williams, who is the best friend of the character played by Nicolas Cage, because he was a police officer that was framed by Frank and sent to jail. He shows up, and it's a thankless role because, of course, once again, we have to have a black character just to show that this guy, well, yeah, he may be a remorseless killer, but damn it, he's got a black friend. So, and he trusted with his daughter. So he must be all right, So, yeah, I mean, it's a thankless role that could have been played by anybody because it really makes no difference in the context of the movie.
I don't know about the comic book. That character may have been black in the comics. I don't know. So I'm not going to necessarily judge the filmmakers on that front.
Well, I kind of doubt it. I'm going to judge the filmmakers because as you well know, having a character have a black friend or a friend of any minority, really. And I really need to stop saying that, minority, because we're not minorities. But having somebody of another ethnic group, Asian, a Latino, that's like shorthand for, well, they're all right because they've got a black friend, or they got a Latin friend, or they got an Asian friend,
Yeah.
So, and he shows up, he has a few words with, Nicolas Cage. And even though he goes into his house, and it's a house where the walls are just decorated with guns.
Yeah.
And he's a police officer. And I guess that we're supposed to think that because he knows that their captain is crooked and he's working for Frank, that's why he doesn't say anything. He just, even though he knows this guy's going around killing people, but I guess he figures, well, as long as he's killing the right people, what do I care?
Yeah.
But still, it's I don't know.
I'm looking up quickly here because I think the character was different in the comics. Big Daddy. I think he was an accountant, I think.
Ah,
something like that. Yeah. Oh, I know. It says here. Oh yeah, he's not an ex-cop at all, but he's an accountant who was frustrated with his marriage, took his daughter and left his empty life to create a new one, and financing himself through selling comic books. And he chose, and so he chose the mob boss as the villain because Hit Girl needed a villain. So he's much more psychotic in the comics. It looks like. Whereas in the movie, he is an ex-cop and he's doing this for revenge, which I understand why they made that change because you don't have the room to, like, maybe if there was a hit Kick-Ass TV series, you would have the room to go into that. But in the movie like this, it works much better with him being a cop because you need him to be that likable character.
Right, exactly. You need him to be a likable character, and also it's a faster way to provide motivation.
Yeah,
for his character. Like you said, if we go the other way, then we got to eat up a certain amount of screen time explaining what he is. Whereas if you just take 10 seconds, well, he was ex-cop, that was frame by frame. Bing, bang, boom. Okay. That's it. His wife died. His daughter was taken from him. Okay. That's all the motivation that most audiences need. And they take it and they just run with it.
Something else. No, sorry, go ahead.
No. Which I was going to say that I, don't have a problem with, because as we have said before in the past, when you're translating, because we're not using that word anymore, folks, adaptation, we're using translating. When you're translating something from one medium to another, you have to put it in that new language that it's in. And film is a different language from the printed page. It's a language, folks. That's how we're looking at this from now on. That when we talk about translating something from a novel or a comic book to a movie, basically what you're doing is that you're translating one language into another. Right. And we have to serve the mediums of that other language. Think of the comic book version of Kick-Ass as Spanish and the movie version as English.
Yeah, very good way to put it. Yeah. And going back to one other thing I noticed when I was watching this last time is it takes a lot of these common tropes and it just kind of flips them a little bit. Like, so for example, like when Hit Girl comes to the front door of the hotel or the apartment building and the doorman's like, it's like, oh, what are you? And she's dressed in the schoolgirl's outfit. He's like, it's just a little kid. What are you worried about security? It's just a little kid. He goes and he opens the girl and then she kills them, shoots them both.
She shoots them both. Bam, bam.
Or, when he goes into, when he sneaks into Katie's room dressed as Kick-Ass, thinking that she'd be like, it'd be the whole superhero thing where the superhero goes to visit the girl in his secret identity. Like you see that in Superman, you see that in Batman Forever, you see it in so many different movies and comic books. And he comes into her room, he poses, and she sees him, and she freaks out, which is obviously the normal thing to do.
Well, of course, you see a strange man dressed in a weird-ass costume in there. And, of course, she said, well, why are you dressed as Kick-Ass? Which reminded me of course, the Batman movie.
Batman Returns, when Christopher Walken asked Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed as Batman?
Yeah, right. What do you mean you're Batman? No, you're not Batman. So the same thing when she said you're Kick-Ass. But then, of course, the thing happens. Whereas when she finds out that he is Kick-Ass, of course, that makes him all of a sudden now,
I also love how awkward he is when they start doing it, right? When he's like, carefully, uncertainly putting his hands on her breasts. It's so delightfully awkward. And that's exactly what it's like your first time when you're a kid.
Yeah. You know what? Especially when you're a superhero.
Yeah.
Or try to be a superhero. And can I just say that one thing that I love in this movie that I could see myself doing if I was a superhero, it's the scene where Red Mist, he meets Kick-Ass. And of course, this is part of the scheme that he has to hand over Kick-Ass to his father. But he shows up with this badass muscle car. And they get in the car and they drive around playing All Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. See, I would do that.
Yeah. They see some people like, yeah, we're superheroes.
Yeah, and everybody's cheering them and they're clapping along and they say, yeah.
That's also kind of a callback to. That's also kind of a callback to Batman Forever because Chris O'Donnell's Dick Grayson. He takes the Batmobile for a joyride in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. And he jumps out the car and the girls played by the group En Vogue.
Mm-hmm.
In Vogue, they say, "Oh, that's not Batman, that's Batboy."
Yeah. He's like, all right, I forgot my suit. Okay.
Hilarious.
Oh, that movie was ridiculous.
Oh man,
and not in the good ways. But yeah, and I love the when another thing like I keep losing my train of thought with this movie. Never mind. Forget what I was going to say. I completely
brain fog.
Yeah. The election, all that's got me, and I'm coming off a 36-hour fast, so like my mind's not working quite right.
Yeah, your synapses aren't firing.
Yeah.
Take some fish oil.
No, I'm gonna, as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go out and get some to eat because I gotta go out to the hardware store anyway later today, so I gotta stop at a bakery nearby there and get some food there.
A hardware store, never a good idea, my friend.
Yeah. Well, we got because we're moving soon, right? We just signed a lease on a new place and we're moving the end of this month, so we've got to and there's one spot on the floor. There's a burn mark, so I'm trying to figure out, and it's hardwood, so I'm trying to figure out if I can convince them that there's nothing wrong there, at least long enough so we can get the deposit back so they don't have to charge us for replacing the floor or anything like that.
Oh, Lord. All right. Say no more because they might listen. They might be listening to your podcast.
Well, it's okay. They don't speak English, so it's all right.
Oh, okay.
Nice thing about living in Japan, nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Just like living in America.
Mm-hmm. But you know what I was gonna say? Also, just going back with the flipping expectations a little bit here and there, which I briefly mentioned before, the microwave scene, right? Because they're trying to torture this guy, they're trying to act like these big tough guys, but the thing they want to use to torture him isn't working. It's like, well, he's got the giant microwave. We can use that. They use it to cure wood. It's like, all right, let's put him in there. They put him in there, and he can't hear a goddamn thing.
And he can't hear anything. And
he's miming it.
Who did you sell our Coke to? and he's trying to.
And he blows up.
And the guy's in the thing, and he's going to his ears. He said, "I can't hear you." You know, like I said, these guys are so delightfully inept.
Yeah,
I just know that they sit around every weekend watching Goodfellas and just say, "Yeah, man, oh man, that's us. That's us." No, that's not you. Trust me, it is not you.
And Mark Strong, like he's progressively getting crazier. I love that the kick-ass birthday party. He's like, "Mommy, I want kick-ass for my birthday party." He's like, "You want to lay off the coke, Frank?" He's like, "Who are you, my mother?"
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, that is such a hysterical scene because the guy said, he's saying, "Man, you're losing it, Frank. You got to calm down there." "No, what do you mean calm down? You calm down. You're not doing your job." But he takes out the coke and he starts saying, "Oh, now you're back on that stuff again," everything like that. And he says, "What are you, my mother?" He said, "You work for me, remember?"
Yeah. Oh. That's what he's like at his Stanley Tucciest in this movie.
Yeah,
that
I said, you look at this guy and you say, okay, he's supposed to be the crime boss of New York. Okay, either crime bosses, okay, or you can say that crime bosses are a totally different breed in this movie from crime bosses that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's having dinner every night with his wife and his son. I mean, he's pretty much like a businessman, really.
Yeah.
Until Kick-Ass starts disrupting his business, and it's really not even Kick-Ass. It's Big Daddy that's doing it.
Right, yeah, but he thinks it's Kick-Ass.
Yeah, but he doesn't pick up on that till later on. Mm-hmm. But he thinks, so then, he starts unraveling because this is a guy that probably never really had to say okay, going back to the Godfather reference that you made earlier, he wasn't like Michael Corleone where he had to fight for his empire.
Right.
He probably just got it because there was nobody, he just bought his way.
Yes, yeah.
Into being, this major drug dealer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I totally get the sense. And that's also why, his guys are so inept, right? They've never had to really do anything.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I mean, if they had to like really go to war with another mafia family, they'd be eaten alive
Right. Yeah.
because they never really had to. They never really had to work.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And I love at the end too, because the whole thing. I like how Chris changes over the course of the movie, right? Because he even towards the end, right? Like when they take Kick-Ass prisoner, he's like, look, he's still trying to stand up for Kick-Ass, right? He's still being like, look, this guy didn't do anything. He's right. He still kind of thinks of the guy as a friend. And then it's only after. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm about to say that. You know what? Okay, he was willing to go along with the plan to hand him over to his father until he found out that it wasn't him. And then we see that, okay, the kid does have a conscience because he's saying, hey, listen, this ain't the guy you want.
Right.
And the father said, well, I don't care. I want him anyway. Yeah, but you just saw the film, because he's got the film of Big Daddy killing everybody. Right. And he says, well, that's not the guy you want. This is the guy okay, we got to change the plan now. And it's his father who doesn't want to change the plan.
Well, he does a little bit because he says that, because he does say, we have to go after Big Daddy too. But he also says that, this guy running around in a mask, it sends a bad example. So we gotta take him out because I don't want someone else like Big Daddy getting any ideas.
Well, you know what? He does have a point.
He does, yeah.
Because when you raid the whorehouse, you take the piano player too.
Mm-hmm. Interesting reference, but yeah. But yeah, and it's that whole idea, right? You gotta send a message. You gotta take them both out. And you even have when they get taken, Chris is even apologizing to Dave, right? He's like, Kick-Ass, I'm sorry. And it's only at the end after Dave kills Frank. After that happens, that's what really pushes Chris over the edge. And we get that another Batman callback, right? He he says a world full of superheroes, and he repeats Jack Nicholson's famous line, wait till they get a load of me.
Where they get a load of me, yeah, which of course sets it up for the inevitable sequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which, did you watch Kick-Ass 2?
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I know I've seen it, but I'd be damned if I can remember anything about it.
I watched it. I don't remember liking it that much. I remember thinking it was a big step down from the first one. But maybe I got to watch it again. I don't know.
Was it directed by Matthew Vaughn as well?
No. It was directed by Jeff Wadlow.
That's probably why I don't remember it.
Yeah.
That's probably why I don't remember it. Because I know I saw it in the theater. Because I said, oh, okay, well, it's and even though it wasn't directed by Matthew Vaughn, I say, oh, what the hell? I saw
it. And it looks like I wasn't the only one because it's got a 32% approval rating on RT.
Oh, okay.
And and the original one was the original one, Kick-Ass, which we're talking about here, that got a 76% approval rating.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah. I mean, it does a great job of combine that. It hits that perfect mix of batshit insane action and a premise, but with characters that are really enjoyable. And it has and the movie's got its tongue firmly in cheek, right, throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, it starts off with the premise. Okay, why? It starts off with Dave saying in a voiceover, "Did you ever wonder why nobody put on a costume and decided to become a superhero?" And for the first third of this movie, the first act of this movie, with him trying to be Kick-Ass and everything like that, it is a pretty serious exploration of what would happen if a guy actually put on a costume and tried to go out.
Yeah,
and do good and then we get involved with all the other subplots with Big Daddy and stuff like that. And
in fact, I think you could easily make the argument that once he gets the shit kicked out of him, and when he's in the hospital and all that, like everything that comes after that is a coma-induced fantasy. You could easily make that argument. I think
that's a good point. And and you could easily look at it that way. Because there are things that happen in the movie that could easily be explained away as just hallucinating.
Yeah. I mean, you got I think, and that could. I think that's I don't think that's actually what's happening, but I think that's an argument that could be made.
No, that's not what's happening. But
Mhm.
yeah, but it is a way to look at the movie.
Yeah.
It's This is like one of these movies that I kind of like that pops up every once in a while because as much as I like the Marvel and DC movies, there's a certain predictability and we know what's going to happen. And then we need a superhero movie like Kick-Ass once in a while where we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know which way it's going to go. There's things in here that we recognize, like with the Big Daddy character and Hit Girl, of course, supposed to be a twisted version of Batman and Robin. But so, we don't know where it's going. And I think it's good for people like me and you who have seen so many superhero movies that this comes along to reinvigorate our interest in the genre.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree completely. It's nice to have one of these movies every now and then that kind of like a palate cleanser in a way, I guess you could say.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not your typical superhero movie.
Right.
You watch it and there are things in there that are familiar, but at the same time, and I have to credit this to the direction of Matthew Vaughn that, I'm watching this and even though I'm saying, I've seen this before, but it feels fresh.
Yes. Yeah.
It still feels fresh. It feels new. It feels like this is something that's got a new energy to it. It's got a new vibe to it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, and you know what? I was not prepared to like this movie as much as I did. I had a very cynical attitude of it going in, but I had heard a lot of people talking about it, in, very positive way. And then I eventually watched it, and yeah, I was pleasantly happy to be wrong.
Yeah, me too. I went to see, the only reason why I went to see it was word of mouth.
Yeah,
I heard from people, they said, "Oh, have you seen Kick-Ass?" I said, "No, I don't know anything about it." But listen, when I saw it, I caught it at a matinee. I only had to pay $5 for it, so I said,
"Oh yeah, you can't beat that."
Yeah, exactly. So even if I don't, wait a minute, it wasn't $5. It was like $7.50, which still isn't bad.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And which I said, well, you know what? Even if it's $7, I don't feel like I'm going to be ripped off.
Yeah, I got it at one of my trips back to the States. I got it at like they had a used DVD store. I got it for like $5 or something like that. And I'd heard enough about it. I'm like, all right, well, I'll watch it. And yeah, and it was definitely worth that $5. I've definitely gotten my money's worth out of this movie over the years.
Oh,
I've watched this like I've watched this like not like double digits, but I've seen it like 5 or 6 times or so.
Yeah. But I rented it. I rented it for like $3.99.
Yeah, and you're right, because it is that good type of palate cleanser movie. Because in fact, that's actually why we ended up watching it. Like about like 2 weeks ago, my wife and I, we were looking through the movie collection, and I'm like, well, what do you want to watch tonight? She's like, oh, let's watch a superhero movie. I'm like, okay. So we're looking through because I got the Apple TV and I got all the superhero movies in their own genre. So I'm scrolling through the movies, and she sees Kick-Ass. She's like, oh, Kick-Ass, I want to see that again. And it was like, she wanted something. She wanted a superhero movie, but she wanted something that was just a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I watched it. Like I said, last night was the first time I had seen it since I saw it in the theater. I think maybe I might have seen bits and pieces of it here and there, but last night was like the first time I've sat down and watched it from start to finish. And once again, like I said, I'm sitting there and I got my little notepad to take notes as to, okay, well, I want to make this point. I want to make this point. 15, 20 minutes into it, I'm just into the movie. I'm not, I forget I'm supposed to be watching this with a critical eye. And instead, I'm just enjoying watching the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is what I like to, it is not a blockbuster of the genre, but it is an extraordinarily solid, well-made superhero movie that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is funny when you think about how the movie takes you from that very grounded approach in the first act, and you don't realize how crazy this thing is until the credits are rolling.
Yeah. No one. When he shows up with the jetpack, that's when I realized. I said, "Wait a minute, how did this thing get so batshit insane so quickly?"
Yeah, and the movie does such a great job of raising the stakes and just like leading you in that path without even you even realizing that it's doing it. All right.
I couldn't agree enough, and of course, it's got the two marvelous performances from Nicolas Cage and playing his daughter. What's her name?
Chloe Grace Moretz.
Chloe Grace. So I can never. She got that funny hyphenated name, but yeah, and of course Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure,
but yeah.
And then Aaron Taylor Johnson, Mark, like the entire cast in this movie is wonderful.
Yeah, everybody's good. I said that earlier. Yeah, everybody's good.
Even Evan Peters, he's got that one small role. Basically, the only thing he does in the movie is at the end of when he sees Kit Girl, right? He's like, I think I'm in love with her. It's like, dude, she's like 11. He's like, I don't care. I vow to save myself for her. And he's like, that's not going to be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, and it's if you haven't seen this movie, it's a fun movie. And I thought it was going to be a very cynical take on superheroes, but it's not, right? It's still very much kind of a celebration, and I like that. I like movies that aren't going to just shit all over something for the sake of shitting all over it.
Yeah, and no, it doesn't do that.
No, not at all.
It doesn't do that at all. Just be advised. And I know that a lot of people. I remember when I saw this in the movie theater, like with Watchmen. Some people make the mistake that just because they think it's a superhero movie, they think it's all right for all ages. I would not let the little ones watch this movie.
No, not unless you're an irresponsible father, like I'm probably.
Yeah, not unless you're a responsible father, like my friend here. But if simply because of the level of violence,
yes,
that this isn't suitable for or even there's even some adults I wouldn't let watch this movie because they're serious. There's some people I would tell them now, well, you know what? Don't watch it because you wouldn't be able. And some people just do not like the image of a 12-year-old girl killing people.
Yeah. I mean, some of the violence in this, my wife was definitely, kind of like turning her head away from.
Yeah. My when we saw it in the theater, my wife she said that she was with the movie up until the little girl. She said, well, I don't like that little girl killing people. She said, I didn't like that. And I said, well, you know what? Which is fair. I understand.
I can understand that.
Me and you, we're insensitive bastards. We don't care.
Right.
But I do recognize the fact that there are some people that would be disturbed by that, which is why I am making a point for those of you who have not seen Kick-Ass, that the little girl in this movie gets into some serious mayhem. So if you think that you might be disturbed by that, you may want to keep that in mind before you watch this movie.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so that does it. Brings us to the end about Kick-Ass. That means I'm going next for my pick. And you know what? We've danced around it so much. I say let's just, go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. And let's just watch Justice League.
Oh! Throwing down the gauntlet, huh?
Throwing down the gauntlet. Let's just get it out of the way. And then we don't have to talk about it again until the Snyder Cut comes out.
Listen. I am all for it because as you know, while I don't think it's a particularly good movie, I don't hate it either.
Yeah, I got very similar reactions. And it is one of those movies that it seems like people have very sharp opinions on it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's the main thing about that movie. It's a rush job. A rush job. The DC Warner Brothers wanted Avengers. They were chasing that Avengers money. Yeah. They wanted a $1 billion superhero movie so badly. And the result was what we got.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we'll get into more of that. And it's also, kind of because this next episode will, I believe, be our 47th.
Okay.
I think we're on that. Let me just double check here. No, okay, so this is 45. Next episode will be 46. So yeah, this is a nice little setup because it looks like, we haven't had any movement in that poll. So it looks like we're going to be doing Avengers for our big 50th. So this is a nice little precursor to that.
Oh, sounds good to me.
All right. Okay.
You guys are spoiled. Y'all got a lot in this episode. Y'all got James Bond. Y'all got Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all got a lot in this episode.
Yeah. So don't come crying that we don't give you, that we're not nice to you, that we're not good to you guys.
I'm telling you.
And we spoil you. We spoil you guys.
Y'all got a lot in this episode.
Some election coverage too, as well. You got some of that.
Yeah.
All right. So that does it for this episode. Come back next week when we talk about Justice League. And until then, head over to our Facebook group. Do a search for Superhero Cinephiles. Join in the discussion. If you don't want us to talk about Avengers for our commentary episode, then you better get your ass up in there and you better vote, because otherwise that's what's going to happen.
Screw it. We're doing Avengers.
We're doing Avengers. All right.
Yeah. You know what? You done got me pumped for Avengers and everything. I done already got the day planned out already. What I'm going to eat, what I'm going to drink when we do that. I got it all planned out.
All right. So yeah. Well, the man has spoken. I'm not going to argue with him. So we'll be doing Avengers for the 50th. Next episode is 46, and we'll be doing Justice League. So we're getting the big guns out of the way here. And that's it for now. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you very much. Once again, we don't take it for granted that you spent your time with us. Good night and God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, or if you have a superhero movie or TV show you'd like us to cover in a future episode, you can email us at superherocinephiles@gmail.com, or you can also visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com. If you like what you hear, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Each review helps us reach more potential listeners. You can also support the show by renting or purchasing the movies discussed, or by picking up our books, all of which can be accessed through the website, as well as find links to our social media presences. The theme music for this show is a shortened version of Superhero Showdown, a royalty-free piece of music courtesy of BesleonStudios.com.